With this COVID-19 virus, an article appeared in The Economist. It was May the 23rd, 2020, and it has de-churching. Underneath that, it says the Sunday slump. And then it says the virus is accelerating a trend away from organized religion. And the article now goes on to say, living in the shadow of Disney's Magic Kingdom has mostly been a happy experience for Community Presbyterian Church in Celebration, Orlando. Its handsome white building with storybook steeple was part funded by a pious niece of Walt. The nearby theme parks have supplied the church with many of its 100-odd members, as well as a steady stream of visitors in the winter, when, of course, the tourism flocks to Florida. The congregation often swells to 1,500. But when Walt Disney World closed in the middle of March, and the church did too, its fortunes took a dive. Its income, which comes chiefly from weekly donations, plummeted. Several employees lost their jobs. Among them was Bill Vanderbush, one of the two pastors at the church. Quote from this man, "You know, as a pastor, that you are living on the generosity of those around you," he says. Quote again from him, "To lose your job when people are suffering is the nature of ministry." His words may prove prophetic, the article goes on to say. The COVID-19 pandemic has hammered churches of all sizes and denominations across America. Most, even those that had encouraged their members to shell out online before the pandemic, or before the pandemic hit, have seen that their income plunged. They've seen their income plunge. Many do not have sufficient cash reserves to tide them over for more than a few months. And reopening is unlikely to bring that relief that it needs in the economy when it starts up again. In many churches, the majority of worshippers are old. If a vaccine is not developed soon, or is less effective in the elderly, many may be reluctant to go to church in the future. The result, the article goes on to say, the result could be a significant reduction in the numbers of churches in America. David Kinnaman, the president of Barna Group, president of the Barna Group, an evangelical research outfit, reckons that as many as 1 in 5 churches and 1 in 3 mainline ones could close for good within the next 18 months. The article goes on, this would represent a rapid acceleration of a long-term decline in American religiosity. Though the process of sectarianism has been slower to take hold in America than in other parts of the rich world, It is now well underway. According to Pew Research, the share of Americans who say they attend religious services at least once or twice a month has dropped by 7 points over the past decade to 45%. The share who go to church every Sunday is a lot lower. Some pollsters put it at 20%. Though the decline is evident among all demographic groups, it appears to be the fastest among poor whites. The institutions that were already seeing the sharp end of this decline will be the first to go. Most of them will be Catholic. Successive clerical sex abuse scandals have stopped many from going to Mass or from going on a regular basis to church. That has hit the church coffers, reducing the financial support parishes with their diocese. So financial support goes down, so do their dioceses and their churches and their members. Goes on to say, this article, many of which have been bankrupt by payouts to victims of abuse, leaving them in turn less able to support struggling churches. Yeah, I guess so. Yes, if you've been following in the last number of years all of those church scandals, sex abuse scandals in the Roman Catholic Church, it's leaving them battered. The end can be swift, this article says. After the last priest of St. Casimir's in Lansing, Michigan, retired last year, and it became clear there were no priests available to replace him permanently. Parishioners wondered whether the 99-year-old church would have to close. Within weeks of the lockdown, it had to do so. It's almost like a death in the family, says Greg Perkowski, as a member of the council. He says it's like the death in a family. The article goes on to say, the closure of North Highland Presbyterian Church in Denver, Colorado, formed in 2010 out of the merger of two churches, was also abrupt. It had redeveloped its buildings into rental space to bolster its income and was, quote, just beginning to make it, end of quote, when it closed on April the 30th. But the pandemic may also lead to the closure of churches that might otherwise have survived for years. Few organizations have any kind of ready income to back them up. And after weeks of a shutdown, a close down, as we're going through, many indeed vibrant churches then are particularly ill prepared. Further down in this article, it says, big churches can also find themselves suddenly close to the edge. Many have been walloped by the closure of their peripheral businesses like preschools. Some mega churches with big running costs are heavily mortgaged. It seems likely that among the small minority of churches that defy orders to close, some were driven by financial considerations as much as by religious liberty ones. The article finishes with this. Though a majority of churches have moved services online, Many report falling levels of engagement. The longer parishioners endure a weekly struggle with tech and fail to attend the essence of connection that took them to the church in the first place, the likelier they will be to give the whole thing a miss. Well, let me tell you this. When it comes to Sunday keeping churches, I am delighted to read what I have just read to you. I have no love for Sunday keeping churches. I'll tell you why. When I was 7, my dad sent me to a Church of England school, Anglican, and first half hour of each day was the Bible. I was delighted. It answered the creation all around me. It was wonderful. I knew then there was a God that made all of this. I was delighted to be studying his word. I went to a local Sunday school, and throughout all of those years from 7 till 17, I attended faithfully, and I had a personal relationship with the Father and with Jesus Christ as my Savior by about the age of 12. I was delighted with it all. In those days in the 1950s, I had to learn the Ten Commandments by memory, every single word of Exodus chapter 20, not the shortened version, as it is in Exodus chapter 20 in the King James Bible. I knew exactly what the fourth commandment said about the Sabbath day. The town closed down. No professional sports was done on Sunday. And so I grew up believing that all society around me and all Christian society around me was keeping the fourth commandment, the Sabbath day, the seventh day of the week. I came to Canada when I was 18, went to a Baptist church because my landlord invited me there. After about a year or so, a year and a half, couple of years, we were talking one day, my landlord and I, and he mentioned that Sunday was not the seventh day of the week, but the first day of the week. I just about fell over. I had grown up believing, because nobody had ever told me differently. None of the Sunday school teachers, none of the priests in the Anglican church, nobody had told me differently. And I believed from reading the Bible and watching society around me, as I say, the towns closed down, that we were keeping the seventh day of the week, the Sabbath day, as in the fourth commandment. I was absolutely shocked when he told me this, my landlord. Went down to the local library, picked out a book by a Catholic bishop called Christian Feasts and Customs, and his chapter on the Sabbath just blew me away also. He said that nowhere in the Bible is the first day of the week sanctified or made holy. Only the seventh day of the week is sanctified. And indeed is the fourth commandment. But he said, we, the Catholic Church, descended from Peter, God's true church, we have the power and the authority to change the weekly Sabbath day from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. We, the Catholic Church, have done that. But there is no authority in the Bible itself to do that. But we, the Catholic Church, have the power to do that, the authority to do that. And so we did. That blew me away as well. So I was shocked. Everything around me that I knew of Christianity was false, was in error. And Jesus kept the Sabbath day. Read the Gospels. There is nowhere in the New Testament that says it was changed. There was a conference concerning physical circumcision because some said you have to be physically circumcised to be saved, and there was a conference, Acts 15, and it shows you the result of that conference concerning physical circumcision. If you think that the Sabbath was going to be done away with, that you didn't have to bother with it anymore, or it was going to be changed to the first day of the week, there would have been a ministerial conference, and they would have had it in the New Testament to decide the issue. And there never was, because the New Testament church continue to keep the seventh day of the week. So I have no love for Sunday keeping churches. I have no love for Sunday keeping ministers. And I'm glad to see that the Sunday keeping churches are declining. And I'm glad that ministers are out of a paycheck. They need to be.